interviewing. You know, that's what they doing. Stick around. It's about to get all roomy up in here. Remote Ruby starts now.
Welcome back, Andrew.
Welcome back, Chris. So, for context, I guess we'll spill a little of the beans. We're traveling a lot this month, especially you. And we're recording a few episodes in a group. And we're also trying to both launch new features separately. So, a lot going on in the world, dude.
Way too much. And more to come. Like, I feel like the rest of the year is just going to keep at that same pace.
I agree.
Yeah, you can sleep when you're dead.
I agree, dude. I agree. We're going to keep answering questions. This is part 2 from episode 300. So if you have not listened to that one, you may want to go back.
Which technically this would be 301 then.
300.
300 part 2.
I will not be making 300 jokes this episode, even though I want to. I think I got that out of my system.
That's because the sequel to it wasn't that good.
Yeah, because my sequel's not that great. I had to call my coworker Diogo to help me with the sequel. Anyway, dude, let's just jump straight back into it. From Aldo, if you could change one thing in Rails, what would it be? Chris, I know you've got a list, I'm sure. I mean, we've talked about this multiple times.
Like one of the cool parts is that we have so much of what we need baked in as officially supported framework features. There are the things that I wish we had, like active record search and HouseMD for action text and whatever.
But those have like been announced. So that's like a cop out because we like know those things are coming and like maybe that lends to like the bias of like, I need it. Well, I've always needed the markdown thing, to be fair. Please God. Please God. I've literally written code to convert Markdown to the smart text format so that I could paste my updates into Basecamp without me having to like reformat everything.
Oh, man.
See, the problem for me is like, I feel like if Rails didn't give me something, I could just build it or get a gem that does. So I don't feel like the framework necessarily needs to encompass everything.
The only answers I really have on this one are like not the framework itself as much as I feel like we just need more help on the core team and the issues and tickets and stuff. The few people we do have that are merging PRs and everything are not enough for the size of Rails, I feel like. I've got 3 outstanding pull requests for JBuilder that really need to get merged. Should have been merged, I think, before Rails 8 to fix an issue. But like the scope of Rails is so massive at the moment. And I feel like it just needs some additional hands, which can be really hard to do, to bring on people that are not just trustworthy people. I don't think is terrible, but it's people with the same taste.
Communication style,
the taste of like, what is the whole reason we started with Rails in the first place was like the language and the design and emphasis on wording and things of methods and all that. It's so important to the core of Rails that makes it easy and stuff. So pulling in more people to merge pull requests and other things is really tough.
I have a similar one though. It really is kind of just a different version of that. I would like to see a core team specifically named for Stimulus and Hotwire, or like there are multiple people who are always working on that, but there's no like solidified team. I don't think it's possible that I haven't seen that, but as far as I'm aware, there's no like core team, quote unquote, for like Stimulus and Turbo and all these things. Yeah, and that would be nice to have.
Yeah, especially with that, where that and Kamal are in the same boat of they're Rails independent projects, and yet they were totally heavily Rails focused at the same time. And that I think makes it tricky where it's like the Turbo Rails glue code is really valuable, but in order to get something into there, you also need to get changes into Turbo, and then it makes contributors really, that becomes such a hard thing to do. And then it's the same thing. It's just having a cadence on we're gonna, Rails at least now has like every year Rails World is going to announce new stuff. So typically you're going to expect a new version around then. And that might be a major version, might be a minor version. I don't know, but at least you'll get some new stuff. And there's often a push towards that. But it's also sort of the nature of like the management of the framework versus, say, Laravel, where Laravel is actually a company and they've now taken funding, and all their job is to work on Laravel and make it better. Whereas we are getting some really interesting things out of Basecamp and 37 Signals and Hey and Once products, because they are building things, trying new ideas, and giving us those learnings as extractions from that. And it's a different style of doing it, which is awesome. But yeah, it's different because they don't have a full-time focus on it. And we do have a great core team, but they're also focused on their problems a bit as well and their areas of expertise. So if somebody on the core team isn't like a Hotwire expert, they may not even have permissions to merge stuff in Hotwire, even though Rails ships with Hotwire by default. So technically it's sort of their responsibility, where we need to fix this for their new Rails release. But if we don't have permission to it, then it gets tricky and complex and stuff.
Before we move on from this question, I would like to say thank you to all the core team members, because
Seriously,
we have no comprehension of it, but it's a hard job and y'all are volunteers, and we very much appreciate all the time and effort you put in to help us.
And it is, and from seeing previous issues, it is a very thankless job.
Yes.
And a huge thank you to everybody who's doing that, and all of them, like the core team, the committers, the issues teams, like
anyone involved. Thank you.
Yeah,
if you've ever made a commit into Rails, thank you.
Unless you've been a dick about it.
Yeah, if you've been a dick about it, then see me after.
Gavin's got 3 questions for us, so we'll start with the first one. We have a split office and remote dev team, and we're realizing that we aren't doing the remote part well. What are some of the best practices to make remote work awesome, especially in our mixed situation?
I'm going to say, you might not have a good answer to this, but I do.
Tough. Yeah. So this brings me back to a previous job where there were 2 of us remote and everybody else was in person in the New York City office. I moved to New York City after 3 or 6 months or something working there, because it was awful, because people would talk in the hallway and then they'd message me on Slack or something and be like, when the hell are you starting that project that we talked about? And it's like, we did not talk about that project. At least from my experience there, it's really tough to be split. And you have to be extremely diligent to document everything in something like Basecamp or GitHub or whatever it is, so that all of the in-person stuff also becomes remote as well. There's no other way around it. It's too easy to like grab lunch with somebody in person, have a whole conversation about stuff, and then forget that nobody else was there from the remote side. And then voila, the teams are now completely separate. They have no idea what's going on. You've created a mess on accident. You didn't mean to. And it's just too easy to do that. So for me, it's been do as much remotely and treat it remote, even if you do have a few people in person.
Yeah, I'm not going to monologue about this, but I've actually worked in this situation before, twice. I actually really enjoyed it. But what was interesting is that on my second time around the company, even though I was still in the city where the office was, I told them I will be a remote only employee. I won't come to the office. And then it didn't matter because then the pandemic, that was like during that. So it didn't really matter anyway.
Yeah, just have another pandemic,
but
force everybody remote.
I've thought about this a lot. So I actually wrote down a few things. What Chris said is exactly like, right. You need to be intentionally remote first. No hallway decisions. Everything needs to be in front of everyone. So Slack, Zoom, always do your meetings on Zoom. There might have been 4 of us in a room in the office and all of us are separately on a Zoom call or on the same Zoom call, but on our separate computers. So like, even if we're all in the same room, you want cameras on, headphones in, everyone there. I think the thing that gets forgotten the most is that if you have a hybrid team like this, it's really easy to kind of forget about your remote employees. And because of that, there's a feeling of isolation of like, I'm not as much a part of the team as the people in the office, because when I see the people in the office interact, they're like friends, bros, whatever, like they're closer, and I feel ostracized by that. So you need to give them visibility. They need to have ownership. They need like give them public shout outs and do intentional in-person stuff with your remote employees, like for everyone, and make sure it's like about building the team, because you want those remote employees to feel like they're a part of the team, because if they don't, that's going to lead to them leaving.
Yeah.
You want to try to build that camaraderie as much as you can, and basically just treat your company like it's remote first. Invest in asynchronous tools, document as much as you can. Don't do things in person. Basically, they need to be done in Slack or in Zoom or however your team chooses to do that.
It's very tough, I think, because it's so easy to make those mistakes. And as much as you want to bring the team in together once a quarter in person or something, like even then, it's not the same. Walk into lunch with a couple coworkers, can't rope in everybody, and that creates a lot of trust and other things and deeper friendships and bonds that
it creates clicks.
You don't get remotely. Yeah, it totally can. And have lunch, but on a Zoom with everybody. Do those types of things. As much as you can provide that in-person experience remotely, try to do that, but
something
it's tough.
One of my coworkers, Stephanie, did, which I thought was really fun, is like we at Podia have retreats we do every year. And some of the team members are really into board games. I'm not one of those people, but I like to play games and I like to socialize. I'm just not a board game person. But one time, Stephanie was like, hey, how about we do like a virtual, anyone who's interested will play an online game. She had a site lined up where we could all sign in and play a game together, like a board game or whatever. And I did that and it was a ton of fun. So like anything like that, like don't force them into socializing after work. That's not what I'm saying at all. Do it during work hours. You have to be intentional. This can't be an afterthought.
Let me tell you a quick story about our sponsor, honeybadger.io. One time, a customer of theirs had a background job run overnight that caused hundreds of thousands of errors to be reported to Honeybadger by mistake. Like many other error tracking and performance monitoring tools, Honeybadger bills for monthly usage, and so this customer's mistake was going to cost them a lot of extra money that month. If you've ever used a monitoring service, you might have experienced something like this yourself. Well, fortunately for this customer, they emailed Honeybadger's support and received the most amazing reply. Honeybadger was resetting their monthly quota and canceling the bill. This is just one example of how much the small team at Honeybadger cares about their users. Ask anyone you know and you'll hear similar stories. Go check them out at honeybadger.io. It's free to get started and setup takes less than 5 minutes. Don't forget to bookmark it. That's www.honeybadger.io.
For my second question, this is still from Gavin. I have about 9 years experience as well as a CS degree, but it's only in the past 3 or 4 years that I've finally caught on to OOP and in the last year TDD, and they have made my day-to-day work so much better and fun. I have a position of influence in my team, and I want to help them to start catching on to and get excited about OOP and TDD as well. Any tips for me to accomplish this? I have tried a few small things, mostly involving code review, and I have a few ideas involving sharing videos and books, but I'm interested in what you guys suggest. Thanks for the awesome podcast and all the other contributions to the community.
Especially in these types of things where you are excited about them, showing off that cool stuff and those code reviews can go crazy long way, because then people will see that your code just has fewer bugs, or you can accomplish something in a much cleaner way. And they're like, whoa, this is great. I want to be like that guy. That influence on your team can be incredibly helpful because it just inspires them to get better. And I think that's great. It's especially good because it also gives people ways to measure their skills at work and get promotions and things like that, because you can see like, wow, this person really has taken off and they are fully embracing these things. And it gives a direction for people, which I think is particularly helpful. And do things like we were just talking about with your team, like lunch and learns, those are awesome. Have everybody on the team. You could do it every day if you wanted to. Rotate and have somebody get up and talk about something they learned or want to share with the rest of the team. That stuff is really great, builds the trust between everybody too, but it also helps share that knowledge across the teams and stuff. And I like that a lot because it's another one of those ways that's not directly, you got to be paying the bills. That's why you're here at work. It's a much more relaxed, casual type of thing you can do with the team that keeps everybody together and builds teams.
I have an answer that's very much because of my life experience with ADHD. I have something I'm excited about that I find at least multiple times every single day. And here's the thing. You can't get everyone excited about the things you're excited about, no matter what.
Yeah.
Right? Just because
Very
you
true.
see this as something like OOP, obviously you're using an OOP language. You should be embracing OOP. But in terms of TDD, there's just some people, you can tell them all the benefits and they can still be like, well, that's just not how I want to work. And I think the most important thing going into this is to recognize that and to be okay with that. Not everyone's going to share your interests. Not everyone's going to be excited or see the benefits of what you're sharing. And you just need to accept that going into it first. Don't get hung up on trying to change their minds because that's a fruitless effort. I would say you don't want to be forcing this on people. You want to be inviting people. So doing the code review nudges is great. That's a great first step of like, hey, what if we thought about this? Like trying to introduce like a different way of thinking, asking good questions. That's a great way to start. I would offer it like, I'm going to do this thing every day, or I'm going to share this, or I'm willing to pair with someone, blah, blah, blah. Open up like a time where it's optional that you can share basically how you're thinking about this, how you're learning, or maybe be like, hey, if anyone's working on it, I'm like really interested in this thing and I really want to like share it with anyone who's interested. If you're working on a feature, I'd love to pair with you so I can show you some of the things I've been learning and see what you think about them. Try to work with people on their own. I don't think doing it in a massive group, like you can share like topics and content. Don't share big content. That's usually barrier. Like if you drop a 6-hour OOP video, I can guarantee you no one's gonna be interested in that. But short, high impact things, I would point to anything Sandy Metz has put out. Sandy Metz's OOP book like literally changed how I thought about object-oriented programming. So share small, high impact things and make sure you celebrate or call out when you see code that you like, that you're like, oh, this is what I'm talking about. Make sure you give praise on that because at the end of the day, that positive reinforcement is going to bring more people to your side of thinking than just trying to force these concepts down your throat. Because also, once you learn a new pattern, you're going to use your hammer everywhere. I remember like going through this with Nate and he's been like, okay, you just learned this new pattern. You need to calm down. Okay. This is a great pattern. It's not going to solve everything. Let's not rewrite our whole code base and just think about some of those things.
That's the human aspect to all of this where yeah, you can't change other people. You can inspire them or whatever, show them cool things that you've done, and hopefully they'll pick up on some of that. You can't expect everything, and that's how it goes. But those are probably the most important things to think about when you're managing a team and leading a team or even just fellow developers.
Here's what the first step, make a channel in Slack if you don't have anyone. That's like for developers to share links or cool things that they found. And then just in that channel, share code you've written or links to like articles about the things that you're interested in sharing with the team. Link those in there. And like some people will read them, some people won't. We have a channel at Put It called Dev Links, and I love it, dude. It's just filled with a developer finds something, they share it in the channel. Sometimes there's discussions, sometimes there's not. But at the end of the day, it's just like one place to go. It's all some of the things people have shared. So I would suggest doing that. That way it's optional. Let participation be optional, I would say.
That's good. I want to reiterate the point on the positive reinforcement. When people review each other's code, like you're putting your work out there, you're being vulnerable, and it can be very easy to take that critically and personally when there's feedback on it that's like, you should change this or that. And it can seem so simple as saying that, but sometimes if the person's impression of what you just said was negative, then that can be painful as the recipient. So that's something to spend a lot of time on, is because this is another thing. When you're remote, the body language is not there generally. And you're writing text and everybody writes very differently. Everybody interprets it differently. Emojis help, memes help convey that you're not just being rude. You maybe wrote it short because you were busy, had to run to another meeting or something, but you were terse about it. But you can throw in a couple emojis so they don't feel like you were intentionally being rude or whatever. And that stuff is incredibly helpful to make it feel welcoming. Because at the end of the day, your goal here is to build everybody up as a team. It's not just like correcting other people's mistakes. It is helping them learn, helping them get better, helping you get better, helping the whole company get better at the end of the day. And you were there to support each other. And that is what you're actually trying to do here.
Yeah, we're moving on from this question. I'm going to share one last thing. If you've ever heard of conventional commits, there's a website called Conventional Comments. And I have found this extremely helpful to use when trying to do code review. Like when you leave a comment, you label it. And that helps me to be a lot more intentional and just frame everything as a question. If you're having trouble with leaving code review, try to frame things as questions.
I forgot all about this site. We'll have to link it in the notes.
Yep.
It's just like examples of the labels are like praise, nitpick, suggestion, issue, to do, question, thought, chore, note.
Yep.
And it's like the little details between a nitpick is something like, I know that I'm being a little bit too picky about this, but like, I'm going to throw it out there. Your spacing is wrong here. I know it's annoying, but like, we should be consistent with it. And those little labels like have a lot of, there's nuance to it, which is what is the hardest thing to convey. So this is awesome. That's a great resource.
I also like, you can put in whether it's blocking or not. And I think that's very helpful because I will leave comments, but they may not be blocking. So if like that needs to go, you can quickly see like, oh, he thought maybe this and that and this, but none of these are blocking. I need to ship this.
What happens when a developer decides to record his own podcast ad? Let's find out. I'm Adam from JudoScale, and at JudoScale, there's no marketing team, no salespeople, and no customer support. I mean, we do have customer support, but it's just us, the developers. That's why our support is top-notch. Anyway, we're JudoScale. We're the autoscaler that actually works. We do it better than anyone else by tracking the right metrics and checking those metrics more frequently. And we wrap it all in a beautiful UI with powerful and intuitive controls. We work with hosting platforms like Heroku, Render, and Amazon ECS to gracefully handle your traffic spikes and backed up job queues. If you want that peace of mind and a much lower hosting bill, you should check us out. Visit judoscale.com/remote Ruby for your special gift as a remote Ruby listener. That's judoscale.com/remote Ruby.
Gavin's third and final question. I'm really interested in attending a Ruby conference, but I'm unsure of how to sell it to the boss.
I've got a lot of experience with this.
I'm my own boss, so I don't have a lot of experience. I have to convince my wife, I guess.
Yeah, that's true.
Does that count?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I guess. Maybe my answer can apply to both, but I've talked about this several times. Every time we talk about conferences, I feel like I bring this up. You need to explain to your boss why this helps him, not why this helps you. Talk about the return on the investment. We're using Rails. We need to stay sharp on trends and security and the tooling and the businesses. Point out that there's networking, which leads to hiring, vendor discounts, community support, meeting contractors and things like that. And then I would say one of the biggest things is how that information that you gain at that conference will help the company. And there's multiple ways you can do that. But one of them would be like, hey, when I get back, I will present to the team everything that I learned during all the talks I went to and share these things. So yeah, it has to benefit the company in some way because they're not going to send you if it's not benefiting them. One reason I've had managers joke about this, tongue in cheek, being serious of like, I'm afraid to send developers to conferences because then they'll get poached. Well, maybe that's because you're not paying your developers enough. But aside from that, that is a real thing that people have. So you need to kind of figure out what their anxieties about you going are first, or what the problem with them is with sending you. And if it's just money, then you need to explain why in the long run, this will bring value to the company and to the code and to the team, et cetera, et cetera. And if it's something else, then you're just going to have to tailor your approach.
I think initially when I started going to conferences, there was so much information to absorb. And you can go to a conference and just take crazy notes and bring it back and show it all to your team. I did that for many conferences.
Me too.
And it was valuable for the team. Very valuable. Because it was like, look, I know we're stuck back in the Webpacker days, but we could switch to this modern thing or import maps or whatever it is. Because I went to this talk, I learned about the trade-offs here, I learned how to upgrade. We can finally rescue this old application or something. Those are incredibly valuable. They are worth every dollar that you spend sending somebody to the conference for the ticket and the hotel and the flights and whatever else. And then, if your company's hiring, then that's also a great thing. But heck, there are so many people that you could hire because you became friends with them, or they're now your friends. So when you're having an issue at work, you can just DM people you've met at conferences and just say, hey, I know you're really good at this. We're dealing with this random thing at work. Could you help us? Do you have any advice? Those little things go such a long way. Maybe that turns into a little consulting gig for that person to help your team or whatever. But also it just is things that just, now you have resources, and effectively the community is also becoming a little bit of your team. You have advice from all these different peoples and stuff that you get at the conferences. You're probably going to end up using something like Honeybadger or Judoscale. And guess what? You go to the conferences, you can meet those people, Adam and Josh and Ben and all of them.
Those are three awesome people that you just rattled off there.
Yeah. And there's just countless others. There are so many weird things that come out of going to a conference that you could never sell your boss on, because it's just making relationships. And being part of the community means you have more support and more help and more potential to hire and more career opportunities too. Those are not very easy to make a concrete sell to your boss, but you work with Jason now. I met Jason because he was a customer of mine, and I just decided to show up even though I couldn't make it to RailsConf. Now we've got a podcast, blah, blah, blah.
Then I got a job out of that.
Then we met you, and then you work with him now, and Drew as well, and just countless people. And there's a ridiculous amount of value from it. Think about going to a conference. I'm I'm going to go watch some talks for a couple days and then come back home. And it conceptually seems too simple, but really it is all about the networking and the people you meet and stuff. That's the real value. That's crazy. I can't even tell you how honored I am to be helping co-chair and organize RailsConf this year. And how did I get to that position? By hanging out at the conferences and by hanging out in the community, and maybe if you sell developer tools or something that other companies at the conference could use, then that's another really good reason to sell your boss. Maybe you don't though, but that's okay. There are plenty of other things you can benefit from too.
I will say one final thing about this is that we've talked a lot about how this will personally benefit you and your career. And these things manifest over time, right? When I first met Drew, I had no idea that 2 years later we'd be hiking the Grand Canyon together and he would join me at work. So these things manifest. And for that reason, you may want to consider is this worth me paying for because of the personal gain that I can get? I've paid for a lot of conferences out of pocket. They are very expensive, and I am not being flippant about that. They are incredibly expensive. But if it's the investment is worth the return, that may be something where hey, my boss won't send me, but I think I will gain enough value out of that this is worth me saving and spending for.
Absolutely.
And you can do it cheaper. There's ways to make it a cheaper trip than what.
There's so many ways. There's so many ways. You can volunteer and help them. Just reach out to the organizers and say, hey, I would love to come. My company can't sponsor me. Is there any way I can volunteer and help out and maybe get a discounted ticket or a free ticket or whatever? Just ask. Be of service. That's a great way to get involved and help out, and then you can attend or whatever. Maybe you pay for your hotel and you've at least cut some of the cost or whatever. So
maybe you have a friend going and you split a hotel room with them.
Yeah. maybe Jason forgot to book a hotel room and whatever.
And Drew
Not
and I
that
have been
that's ever
splitting
happened
hotel
before.
rooms for years, dude.
I mean,
It's so much cheaper. If you're fine sleeping in the same room with that person, like it's a no-brainer. I've been doing that at
Yeah.
conferences for years, like splitting hotel rooms with people.
it's so good. It saves so much money. Yeah. So that's the other point of the question is like, if you feel strongly about going, find a way to go with or without your company sponsoring everything. Or if they're still a bit unsure, then say, hey, I'll cover half of it. Will you cover half?
Yeah.
A lot of times companies too will like, you guys have a policy, right? Like if you are speaking at the conference, then they'll cover everything, I think.
Yep. And if we're not speaking, they'll cover the ticket, which is wildly gracious.
And that's like one of the things that's like, Pody gets some exposure that if maybe somebody does want to go work for you, then you guys are in the community being involved. You are speaking at conferences. People see your names. They know about the company. So when they're looking for a job, they're checking to see your job openings. So for hiring, it's a pretty obvious sell. But also there's aspects of that where like, guess what? People who give talks might want to sell a course and might end up being a Podia customer or whatever, because you guys spoke at a conference and talked about your product or
Right.
whatever. So there are lots of different things that you can do to sell to your boss, but also work with them and see if they're not totally sure on it. Can we agree to just give us $1,000 budget for the whole year and I'll fill in the rest? If I want to go to 5 conferences, I'll pay for most of it out of pocket, but $1,000 could at least be covered by the company. You can talk to your company and see what they're willing to do on that.
I feel like I would also be remiss if I didn't mention that if you wanted to join 150,000 solo business owners who run their website, online store, and email marketing on Podia, then you should start a free trial at podia.com. Thank you.
Do you
Thank
have a
you.
referral code?
No, I don't need it.
Your salary is your referral code.
Yeah, I mean, I love my company. So there's a few questions that were asked that we are not going to go through because they were covered on the episode of Jason's departure, which was very recently. So in order to not reiterate a bunch of stuff over again, we are going to tell you to listen to that episode for some of the answers to some of these questions.
Yeah, that was episode 293, Jason's farewell.
Someone asked, what's the best way to deploy a Rails app, making it cost efficient? That would be Hatchbox. Next question.
Hatchbox, disclosure, I'm an investor and the creator.
I'm not an investor, but I would. I'm
But-
like saying that legitimately. Like the last time I needed to deploy a Rails app, since Heroku is not free anymore, I was like, I used Hatchbox. It just seemed like a no-brainer because I was like, I don't want to deal with all the BS. I don't want to learn a new deployment system. I just want my freaking app on a domain. And Hatchbox let me do that in like 5 or 10 minutes. And off a brand new Rails app, we were good to go.
Yeah, that's our goal. And you bring your own servers with it. So you can go pick whatever the cheapest VPS is. Probably it's going to be Hetzner. At least these days, they are insanely competitive. Your real best options here are Kamal, do it yourself. Or if you want support, then Hatchbox. That's the other thing is like, you need help with Heroku or something. It's pretty much you're on your own. Go Stack Overflow and maybe you can write into support, but God knows they get so much support. At least with Hatchbox, it's like you write in and it's going to be one of us answering, and there's only 3 of us. So it's great for that. And once people get things set up, it's smooth sailing. You know, upgrade your server here or there, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
But,
if you're not a DevOps expert, then that's just what I would
or
do.
a Docker
Yeah, it's
feed.
like, I don't need to say it again. If you don't want to bother all that crap and you just want to get it done quick, because it sounds like this question is aimed at like, I am not a DevOps engineer.
The other thing both Kamal 2 and Hatchbox do is you can pay for a bigger server. Like with Heroku, Render, Fly, all of those are going to be basically one app to one dyno, and you cannot run 2 apps on the same server. Kamal 2 supports that. I don't think Kamal 1 did, but Hatchbox does too. And that was one of the real reasons why I started Hatchbox was like, I have a server that I use every single day and it runs like our Learn Hotwire course and the Jumpstart marketing site and a handful of other apps, the Cell Repo and whatever. And it's like, I don't need to pay for each one of those separately. They're all pretty lightweight apps. You basically go to Stripe checkout and we invite you to a GitHub repo for most of them, or we like embed a video on the page. So it's not like the Rails apps are doing much, but it saves me a ton of money. If there's 9 or 10 apps on the one server, I'm paying $10 to Hatchbox and I'm paying $10 or $20 to Hetzner for a server. And that's it. And I'm running 10 apps, which would cost me, Heroku is what, minimum is like $7 or something these days. I don't remember. Even if it was $5 like it used to be, it's like 5 times 10. And then usually for those, you need a database, and those often cost money after a certain minimum. So you can easily end up spending $10 per app, and then you'd be at $100 in a month pretty quickly.
And then you got to get the add-ons too. Don't forget about that.
Yeah.
It adds up real quick.
And those are really good if you are building something that is making money that will have random spikes like Podia. Guess what? Black Friday is going to be insanely unpredictable for you. And also just regular Fridays or Mondays might be insanely unpredictable because you don't know what your customers are doing. And somebody might have a massive launch, and you're going to need something like Judo Scale or whatever to automatically scale up on those unpredictable things. And so those tools can be very useful for those types of products. At this point, if you're worried about cost, probably that is a thing to come later.
You want to know what happens when we have a massive spike like that? We use Judo Scale. So we just Judo Scale. Like Judo Scale's worked amazing. We haven't had a problem like that. Dude, we're scaled. Let me tell you, I've got no worry about the scale of our application.
And shout out to Adam for sponsoring the podcast now. You know, that's why we accept him and Honey Badger as sponsors, because we actually use and believe in their stuff. They're amazing people. Like
and I was going to say, and we know the people too. Like we hang out with these people. Yeah. Like we hung out with Adam a lot in Chicago. I had a blast.
It was so much fun. Yeah. Let's see. John Turknet asked, what is podcast origin story? We will send you to that same episode for Jason's farewell. William Kennedy asked if Jason, pronounced Jason, changed his name to Jason, pronounced Jason.
But also, I have shell functions called Jason. There's a gem called Jason. It's out there if you need it. Don't worry. Those of us who care about this are making moves, so don't worry. Which gem would you recommend for integrating MCP into a Rails application? I have no idea. I have not looked into using MCP with Ruby whatsoever.
I looked it up. There is somebody had made it MCP-RB.
If you're interested in MCP in Rails, then reach out to the creators of those projects and tell them that you want them to be on Remote Ruby and tag us and let us know.
I just searched Ruby gems for MCP, and the gem name MCP is the Minecraft protocol implementation.
Let's go, baby.
So that's what I couldn't understand. All of this stuff lately that people are excited about with AI was actually Minecraft all along.
Dude, I always knew Minecraft was real. Minecraft is the real world. Punching trees like hurts in the real world. Like I've punched my fair share of trees, and it's just so much nicer to do in Minecraft.
Yeah, punching trees.
Good time.
Hurts.
I think we can cover this last one real quick because we've talked about this a lot and don't really need to reiterate everything. Basically, can freshers get remote Ruby jobs and how? I'm just going to list quick things that we've listed time and time again. Build real things, make a portfolio, contribute to open source if you can, be visible, blog, tweet, post, blog post, share with people, go into Discord communities, Reddit. If you're brand new, then you need to be practicing how you interview. That I think is something that a lot of people don't think about and don't spend time. They're like, I need to be a good coder. But just like in school with exams, a lot of these interviews are not like real world applicable. So you need to specifically study and prepare for these types of interviews. And then this part's harder, but find companies who are hiring newcomers, look for ones that support boot camps, so they have mentorships baked in,
go to
internships,
go to conferences, make friends.
And you just really need to apply a lot. It's freaking hard out there. My little brother is like about to enter the job market. I'm very aware of how hard it is to get a job, like not just in Ruby, but in the development in general. So it's hard.
Even these days, it's hard for seniors because the big companies have been laying off stupid amounts of people. And then everybody's like, oh my God, AI is going to take over and we don't need these developers anymore. which isn't true, but everybody's acting that way right now. So like they're pausing hiring and stuff. So it makes it for a really weird market right now. So you'll have to be patient. But honestly,
You have
like
to stand out.
think about it. The same thing we talked about recently about submitting your conference talk. You need to think about, as the organizer, how do I know if this talk is going to appeal to the audience and get people to attend the conference? So you, as an interviewer, you need to think about, what is the employer thinking about? What are they worried about? If I hire this person, are they going to be able to start working quickly and be productive and meld with the team? Are they capable of diving right in? Have they shipped things to production? If you are interviewing and you don't have anything to show that's like live on your own server or Heroku or whatever, then that's going to be a silent negative. They're not even going to see that you can like ship average production code.
They don't want like a normal person.
And they won't necessarily ask about it or whatever. But if you show up and you're showing them like, this is what I've done, look at this stuff, and here are some of the weird edge cases that I ran into, I didn't realize I was going to hit. And then I figured out like, here's the solution for this. And it has these trade-offs. Then if you can explain those things in your interview, they're going to see, okay, this person knows how to think through problems. And that is what we need, because that's what we're hiring for. That is the job. That is all you do every day as a programmer. And so being able to stand out in some way like that to show that you're like, are capable of thinking through these problems. And it's easiest if you bring your own. But when they give you a code challenge, they don't just want the right answer that just appears without any explanation. They are like learning to see how you think and how do you solve problems and whatever. So think of it from that perspective too. Like if I was going to hire someone, how do I trust that they're going to do a good job? What are their standards? What are they like worried about when they're writing code? Is it going to be they're just trying to make it perfect? Because guess what? Nothing's ever perfect. So we maybe don't want to hire somebody that is only aiming for the perfect solution. Because guess what? It's going to change tomorrow because the business changes constantly. So maybe somebody who starts thinking out loud about like, well, these are the trade-offs for this. We could actually build this in 3 days instead of like 3 months. So maybe you want to try that. Then those are things that as an interviewer, you're like, okay, this person's thinking about a lot more than just like making the code functional. This is actual practical real world things that matter as a developer in a real job. That's very important.
One thing I thought of while you were talking is reach out to the developers at the company you're about to interview for. Maybe ask them about the interview. Maybe ask them about the company. Like these are all things that can then benefit
their
you
day-to-day work
in the long run, because that's going to make you stand out. But then it can also help you prepare for these interviews. And the other thing I will say is that if you are not even getting to the interview part, then your resume needs to be improved. And there are millions of resources out there to do that. But I would highly suggest you pay someone whose job it is to do that. Or there's often resources in your community for things like this, very, very often. So there are people out there who can help you with your resume. I'm often very surprised when will have friends who can't get jobs, but like, well, can I see your resume? And they'll send me the resume. I'm like, dude, did a 4-year-old make this? Like, what are you talking about? The majority of resumes get screened out. So if you're getting screened out of all these things, then there's things you can do with your resume that an expert can help you with to help you move past that.
There's that. And that's only going to get harder and harder because
if I see AI on your resume or in your cover letter, I'm dropping you immediately. I swear to God. Like, that's just me, because that tells me you don't care enough about this to actually work on it. I know what AI looks like. So if I see AI in your cover letter or your resume, obviously you can use AI to help you. But if you just generate it with AI, I'm going to be able to tell that, and you're instantly in my no pile.
Yeah, because we need to know you and your skills.
Yeah.
And who you are as a person.
Yeah. I need to know how you communicate.
That's it. We're not working with the AI because
I can pay the AI.
Skip you. Yeah, we go directly to the AI if that were the case. And also, we don't need you then.
If you are literally only willing to put out an AI's amount worth of effort, then why would we hire you when we could just use the AI? So at the end of the day, you need to put in the effort. You have to go above and beyond because you have to be exceptional. Like, it sucks. It's not fair. But that's the way it is. So
Yep. I feel like it's always been hard. It changes throughout these seasons of like, now we have AI and whatever, crypto and Web3.
Now we have
yada, yada.
compilers.
I feel like it's always been hard. There have definitely been times where there's too much money. So Google and companies just start hiring people just for the pure reason that Amazon doesn't get them or whatever. Maybe things were easier then, but like it's just hard.
But we're marching towards a recession
always.
right now in like a forward march. So that's not going to get better anytime soon. Like we are zeroing in on a recession in the United States. So it's
we're
not
jogging.
going to get better. It's
We
going
might
to
be
get worse.
sprinting soon.
Dude, we're diving like off the tallest dive.
Nothing a few more tariffs can't fix.
Don't piss me off. Anyway, I think we're good.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Thanks everybody for sending your questions in. Did we say this yesterday on the podcast? But like, it still amazes me that anyone listens to us. Like,
Yeah.
So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for
we
listening.
appreciate it. And honestly, some of the best things ever are hanging out with people at conferences after they've listened to the podcast and they come up and say hi and tell us about something that we said that was stupid or funny or whatever. And
Yeah.
those are some of my favorite moments at conferences these days. Had no idea that sitting and recording our therapy session every week, as remote Ruby tends to be sometimes, that it would turn out to be that. And we're grateful for all of you guys.
Yeah. Podcasting has changed the trajectory of my career. So I wouldn't be here without all of you supporting. So
It's another tip too. If you were looking for a job, right,
yes,
right.
which will help you communicate
Like-
better too.
It will help you communicate better, but also like literally my blog at a certain point just became, I spent more than 30 minutes searching for the answer to this problem. I'm going to write it down and I don't care if anybody ever reads this, but it will be public just in case. And I found my own blog posts 6 months down the line and saved myself a ton of time. But that is the stuff that builds your resume more than almost everybody else, because nobody really consistently blogs. Nobody's really posting content. And if you are, you're posting on TikTok or X or whatever, Blue Sky, that stuff does not have the same love and care put into it as blog posts do. And if you do that, it makes you stand out a lot. It really does, because you've shown that you care enough to do that. And I feel like when I see those, I don't see it hardly at all. That's why people stand out, because it's like, it's work, but people don't want to do work. They just want to watch YouTube, play video games. So if you show you're committed like that to learning and helping others learn, teaching that stuff that you just learned, because sometimes you will find the solution to a problem and have no freaking idea why it worked. If you have to then go sit down and force yourself to write a blog post and explain why it worked, you're going to understand that solution way more deeply. And that's how you get to accelerate your learning like 10 times compared to your peers who aren't doing that. That seemed to be like the consistent thing I saw all throughout college was like, we're all in the CS degree together. We're all learning exactly the same stuff, but some people are way more capable because they're going the extra mile. And other people are just doing the bare minimum to get a A or B on their exams.
Yeah.
That was it.
My favorite example of this is from Josh. He has a TIL repo. That's where I learned about this pattern, and I've seen it copied a few times. And if you are listening to this, you're like, hey, I want to get started doing that, but you're not sure where, go to the repo. I linked in the comments. I do this myself, just not publicly, and just see like what this could become for you if you start doing this.
I haven't seen this repo from him. Holy cow, this is good.
It's dope, right? I do this. There's other people, some people in the Python community do this. Like, it's very cool. Just writing, basically, when they learn something, they write it down, and that's what we're talking about. So
2,077 commits. When I clicked on it, I didn't expect there to be like 100 different folders of ZSH and YAML and Webpack, VS Code,
1,600 files of resources in here.
Incredible. This is awesome. Yeah. And all you got to do, write a little markdown, check it into your blog,
your notes app,
your Jekyll blog,
wherever.
your notes, Obsidian, your GitHub, whatever. Because the other cool thing with this, you can then take these, if they're in Markdown, pipe them into Jekyll, make yourself a static site and host it on GitHub Pages, and boom, you've got your notes in version control, and it's shareable and indexable on Google and everything. Because I don't know that Google really, it does give you some results of GitHub repos, but not as
it's not
nice
indexing
as if you
the
publish
files
this, like,
necessarily.
exactly.
If you got to search on GitHub for GitHub things, I find usually.
Yeah, this is sweet. I really want to do something like this. And like, this is also a great opportunity to build something to automate this, where you could have a little Mac app or a Linux app or a Windows app that you just like have your own keyboard shortcut, opens an Electron thing that then writes a file to your GitHub repo or something. And you just have like a shortcut. I do this thing, boom, it's done. I don't have to think about it. I go back to work, but I at least make that optimized for myself. And then you can talk about that in interviews and people will be like, this is wild. This is cool.
Yep.
Makes you stand out. And you don't have to do that much. This can be so stupid simple.
Yeah, it doesn't have, there's not a high, doesn't have to be polished. Treat it as something for you first. If I had to come back to this, like optimize it for you coming back to it later.
Yeah, make sure that it's easier for you to do. Because most people start and fall off the bandwagon well before 2,000 commits.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Low barrier, quick capture. And just don't worry, just do it. All right.
Yep.
That was episode 301.
In the books.
In the books. I hope you all enjoyed.
Well,
thank you for staying with us for 301 episodes.
Looking forward to hanging out with you in person at Sin City Ruby.
Yep. That will be very soon here.
2 weeks.
If you hear about any craziness in Vegas, just know it was me.
Yep. If you see all the police and ambulances and stuff, that was Andrew.
Burnout marks and like stuff on fire, you know, I've been through.
Yeah. At the Popeyes.
Yeah, the Popeyes. Yeah. All right. I'll catch you later.
All right. See ya.
Peace.